Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Search of the Brawler Cafe, bringing you yet another HTN deck profile. So, as you can probably tell from the title, I went to and won the the second Jett Kuso tournament, did with this HTN deck. It's slightly modified from the version I last deck profiled. Primarily the addition of one very specific Age of Aurelus card. So I want to talk about the changes that I made in this deck, specifically for that tournament and because the cards are acquired. And generally how it performed in the tournament. Just basically talk about that and excuse to talk about the tournament in general. So yeah, let's get into it. First up, we have, of course, star of the show, Mr. HTN. Big boy, not so big in his base form. 305 hits 950 on a magic shield, which, while very tiny when compared to power creep boys, if you're fighting decks that are lower on the power spectrum, like fighting against stuff like Spectryx, which Poppy was using, or if you're fighting a deck that might have better base powers like Connor's Mono Ventus, but does not have as good overall quality of B power boosting, then you can still win battles in base form if you should need to. Second up, we have Aqua's Scavo. This provides us all the benefits of the Aqua's card pool while also being a 1350 boy. Oh, sorry about that. That's a tragedy. Let's try that again. Let's try that again, Cabo. There we go. Got it that time. Yeah, 1350, 5 damage, hits 11 on the plus 6 damage Flaming Fist. If it should come down to it, though most Bakugan that are going to be utilizing Might Mac are going to be 5 damage minimum themselves and are going to be going for the plus 6 Flaming Fist themselves, so re-rolling onto a plus 6 Flaming Fist isn't really going to help you in that scenario, but still, sometimes it will help you, and it's nice to have that option. And lastly, we have Mr. Spectryx, which is our second boss boy. Comes down on turn 3, as we'll be getting into turn 3, turn 3, turn 3. The amount of times I get that on curve is absurd. He has 1150 in base form, which is not quite Power Creep Boy tier, but still beating out a lot of the Bakugan in the format. Spectryx also provides us with the Ventus card pool, which is mostly here because Nature's Power is a card. But Ventus is primarily here for Spectryx himself, because on a 3-cost Evo, he's getting up to 2250. And unlike HTN, does not need another magic shield on the board for it to steal to get up to that high B power. Just needs to hit one magic shield, and it's already there. And doesn't have anywhere near as weak of a base form, of course. So that's the lineup, as it was last time. I personally feel that Haos Aquos Fantas is the strongest faction lineup in the game. Aquos gives you the best draw power and a lot of really strong B power boosting. Fantas and Haos have the other strong B power boosting cards in the game. And Haos gives you access to evil removal, which can be really crucial. And Haos and Ventus combine to give you a really strong pool of flips that will allow you to stop a lot of the major things in the format for low cost, minimizing the damage we'll be taking. So, 1 cost. First we have 3 copies of Deep Dive. This is one of our basic rerolls. 1 cost, draw a card, reroll a Bakugan. This allows us to abuse Shun, and if we happen to miss or get blocked or for whatever reason need to reroll, this lets us reroll. Very cheap. Most of the time, almost every time we're going to be landing on exactly what we want, but there are those 1 in a billion times where you do mess up, nerves get to you, whatever, so it's nice to have those low-cost rerolls around. And it's just a cantrip, regardless, which is really good for activating flow, gives you an extra draw of Shun, as I said, lets you dig deeper for your Evos. And sometimes there will be times mid-turn where you'll want to change what core you landed on. Like, say, if you're fighting against Jett's Pyrus Callion, and you roll, say, your Cabo or your Pegatrix onto something that's not giving you a bonus, like you roll Pegatrix onto your Flame Fist or you roll Cabo onto your shield, so that you're not, well no, it needs to be Spectryx onto the Flaming Fist, so that you're not activating Underdog, but then after you've done that, you can then reroll onto a proper course so that you can actually win the fight. Our other 3 of 1 cost is Nature's Power. This is just a 500B differential for 1 energy. This is of course a dead draw against Mono Ventus, but against anything else that happens to be carrying Ventus, you just wait until you can use it on the non-Ventus Bakugan. Of course, there was a Mono Ventus player there, Connor. I did not fight him in the tournament, but we played a couple sets before the tournament, which was the better build compared to his tournament build because he wasn't allowed to use our elite stuff, so I had to deal with Ventus Dragonoid during those test games. So this was a dead draw during those, but that draw wasn't, like, Ventus isn't a threatening enough deck to this deck. So basically the strength of Mono Ventus as like a mid-range build, which is how Connor was playing it, is that Shell Shield gives it an extremely powerful tool against Might Mac decks. And against Power Creep boys, where they only have 1 good Evo, you have 3 fairly potent Evos in the ideal version of the deck. The new Ventus Maximus Dragonoid, Ventus Titan Fate Ninja, and Ventus Hyper Spectryx. All of those hit over 2000B on their respective cores. And those can, while you can deal with that with Hydronoid, with other Bakugan it becomes difficult to deal with. So that's how that deck was getting success. But against a deck like HTN, which is very big Bakugan itself, with 2 strong Evos, and lots of strong B-power boosting, even without our Nature's Power, it's not too difficult of a matchup for us. Our other reroll is 2 copies of Dark Waters. Plus 200B is a bit less useful than a draw, so I have that only 2 copies. But still, 1 cost, good enabler for Wave Slash, plus 200. Good rerolls for all the reasons I already went over with Deep Dive. 2 copies of Tides. This is still a fairly useful card, 1 for 400. But in light of some other cards I want to fit into the deck, I ended up cutting it from 3 to 2. 3 copies of Blinding Ink. So this just lets us shut down my Sindius or any other 3 cost or less action, which is going to be a lot of actions are going to be played. Another thing to notice, this was notably less useful against Connor's Mono Ventus because a lot of his battle affecting actions were 4 cost or more. Just because those were the most efficient options that Ventus really has. And that's of course Nature's Power, which is how I generally ended up spending my Blinding Inks there. 2 copies of Light's Courage, 2 cost plus 400, that if your domination becomes plus 800. Just overall, very good card. Use it once you're ahead a bit, or once HTN is online, which almost always will be guaranteeing you domination. And you just get one of the most efficient B-power boosters in the game. Even more efficient than Nature's Power, honestly, at times. 800 for 2 is just a lot. And 3 Wayne. I bumped this up from 2. 1, because honestly I've been wanting to do that. 2, because I knew that Jett was going to be playing some version of Pyrus Hyper Serpentines. And that I feel is one of the most threatening matchups for this deck if you do not have the Wayne maxed. So I want the Wayne maxed so that I would be able to see it as frequently as possible against that. And I saw it every game when we played in finals, which was very crucial for allowing me to win. 3 copies of Wave Slash, 3 cost for plus 1000 as long as you've played another card that turn. Just very, very big numbers will allow you to blow out anything that does not have a Wave Slash or Blinding Ink of its own in most cases. Just really, really good. Typically, I would use this on turns when I was on Scavo because my other Bakugan would be able to win typically with the smaller boosts. But I would use this to get over like any big Evo that I needed to with Scavo since it's staying on base form because the Evo is not very good. The Age of Aurelus card I acquired. These are not the copies of Sinkhole that I was using at the tournament. I was borrowing 2 copies of Sinkhole from Toolbox, but after I got down here to our house down here, I ordered 4 Sinkhole off of eBay, the only 4 Sinkholes that were available on eBay, and they arrived just yesterday. So now I have my sinkholes to use properly. 3 copies of Shun because it's the best draw engine in the game. You put this down on 3 if you don't need to put down Spectryx to win the battle, or just put it down a turn later or whatever, whenever the timing is convenient. And then from that point on, you're just basically getting an additional card each turn, which can become more with the power of these. And when you're already putting up like high B powers that are difficult for many decks to that require cards out of your opponent many times, and many times your opponent will just fold the turn without competing you. It ends up building a lot of these very powerful B power boosters into your hand, so that when your opponent starts competing with you again, you have a huge amount of options to do things to your opponent. And if you're not drawing, if you haven't seen your evos yet, of course it also helps you get to your evos so that your game plan can really take off. 3 copies of Fantas Spectryx. We want to be seeing this as often as possible. This is a whopping 1150 B power boost. Wait, was it that? No, it's 1100. 1100 B power gained for 3 energy, which is absurd. Like, it's bigger than a wave slash and doesn't have a flow requirement, and it's permanent. Like, it's really, really strong. Yeah. And then we have 4. I wish I could run 4. 3. I was talking about the cost there. 3 Haos Titan Nillious. This will allow us to disrupt our opponent's strategy by stealing their cores. Gets Haos Nillious up to 2300. If we're on a magic, we have 2 magic shields, which typically involves stealing a magic shield from the opponent's side of the field if they're running them, because we don't want to take any of our other magic shields, because that will leave Scavo or Spectryx unable to hit the numbers that they need to. But even still, we have this plus 400 Haos Fantas shield right here. That will still allow HGN to hit 2050. If we're fighting a deck that does not have a magic shield for us to steal, then hitting 2050 is typically going to be enough. We can also grab one of these plus 6 Flame Fists to get 1650 B power and 18 damage, which will stave off basically any Might Mac play your opponent might play. And you can just play a reroll to reactivate the effect and grab that Flame Fist if you need to go for power early in the turn. Like, say you're fighting a Pirate's Hyper Serpentine Ultra that's in Fury, you need the P power, but then your opponent plays Might or Mac, then you can just reroll, grab the Magic Shield again, grab the Flame Fist, get up to 18 damage. And of course you can steal cores from your opponent's side of the field with the effect to disrupt your opponent's strategy. Just overall very versatile card, very, very powerful. And then our flip lineup. 3 copies of Confuse. Most of the things that are going to be threatening you are going to be other things with magic shields, able to hit high B powers, or either Hydronoid on a Flaming Fist, or things using Might Mac on a Flaming Fist. So Confuse is just covers everything, so we always want 3 of it. It only does it for 1 cost. It's kind of absurd. Won't cover Akko's Hydrus core when we get into the next set, but that's basically the only thing. 2 copies of Rock Riser. This is more magic shield coverage. Also covers shields, but shields do not come up much. The shield part is not really part of why we're running this. And then I slipped 2 Stand Together back in. I don't know if I'm going to keep this. I basically slipped this in because I had no way of stopping things that didn't have a core, things that had a fist, or things that had a helix. Since I knew that Poppy was going to be running a Spectryx deck that was mainly fist cores, I wanted 2 Stand Together just in case a team attack ever happened, because I didn't want to just die on the spot. However, despite fighting Poppy in round 1, that scenario never came up against anyone I fought throughout the whole tournament. So I'm not sure if this was the greatest idea to keep in. I might have just been scaring myself a bit too much with that, maybe being a bit overcautious, but I was able to fit in everything I felt I needed for the deck regardless, so I don't think that sacrifice was too big of a deal, if there were cards that I want to prioritize more to fit in, this is definitely like the first thing I'd cut, but right now making that cut was fine. Feel free to do it yourself. With that said, this is Hunter Surge signing off.